Peyton, I'm going to call you up to introduce your speakers for today.
So everybody, I have with me today Rick Phillips. Rick is the founder of Sun Warehousing and Distribution, which opened in 2016. It's really amazing to go see. So if you ever want to take a tour, I'm sure you can work that out. But he's going to tell us a little bit about his business. He's got Amy Boozer, his daughter, and the now president of Sun Warehousing and Distribution. So I'm excited to hear what they have to say, and I will turn it over to you.
I've got a couple of notes I brought with me to hold it down. But I'll talk about Sun Delivery as well, which is what got me here. Sometime back, sometime back, David asked me if I would be willing to come and speak with you guys at some point about how I got to Thomasville. And I can't wait to hear this story myself. But just real quick. I will tell you too, I've rehearsed this thing 3 or 4 times. I did it the other day. I was driving down to the coast. I checked something on the boat. And after about 45 minutes of doing this in my head, I thought, I got to back this down a little bit. Probably can't last quite that long. But at any rate, so my coming to Thomasville started in 2002. Started on New Year's Day, about 6 o'clock in the morning. And I worked for a company in Eastern North Carolina, a really good company. I liked what I did. I liked the guy that owned that company. We were friends, and I owned just a little bit of that company as well. I was doing international sales, so I was traveling all over the world. I mean, it was a cool job to have. But I thought I didn't want to wind up at some point in my career and wish there'd been one last hurdle that I wanted to jump that I didn't take. And that was to do something on my own, to be in business for myself. I had worked for 4 different companies, and I was supposed to hit a slide here. Got some pictures of us at Sun Delivery. But I had worked for 4 different companies before coming up here, and all of them were really good companies. They were all companies that were bottom line driven, which I think is important. You have to be that. But in my career, I had never worked for a company that I felt like was truly customer driven. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to be that. I wanted to have a company that was customer driven. And so I sat on the sofa. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning. My wife was upstairs asleep. We lived on Lake Gaston. And I remember made a cup of coffee. I walked over and looked at the lake in the dark and went and sat down on the sofa. I thought about it and I said, well, this is the year I'm going to do it. And I said that out loud to myself, not loud enough that my wife could hear that and scare her. But I sat on the sofa and I said a prayer about it. And I went upstairs and got on the computer. And also in that prayer, I prayed that I'd be smart enough to recognize the opportunity that was presented, that when it came along, that I'd be smart enough to see it. I went upstairs and got on the computer, and in about 30 minutes, I found Sun Delivery. I didn't know what it was at the time. The ad said, home furniture delivery company for sale in Thomasville, North Carolina. And I thought, well, that's probably some guy with a couple of old ex-U-Haul trucks delivering out the back door of a highly fired store. And but it's something about that interested me too. I looked at a lot of different things, but I kept coming back to this one company because something to me said this could be a niche business. And I knew enough about trucking to like to start something like Old Dominion that takes more money than God. And truckload business back then was a nickel a million. So to make it in trucking, you had to have something that was a niche business. And this said to me, this could be a niche business. So I contacted the business broker that had it and signed the NDA and got some information on the company. My wife and I drove up here one cold, rainy Saturday in January and looked at the outside at the gate, through the gate at Sun Delivery, at what it was, and it was raining, like freezing rain, just a miserable day to look at anything. But I got excited about what I saw, even though wasn't exactly what I had in mind. So I wound up hiring a friend of mine who's a retired VP with First Union Bank, who agreed to work as a consultant and help me put this thing together if we could. So we got the numbers, and one of the first things he did was come up to Thomasville, and he met Hope Surratt. And they went over the numbers of the business or whatever, and he came back to me and said, Rick, I don't know whether or not you'll buy this company. He said, but if you do, you sure need to work with her. That is one smart young lady. I took his advice, and I've never regretted it for a minute. But at any rate, over the course of the next 6 months, we were able to put it together. I mean, it was one hurdle after another, just one blockade, it seemed like, after another to prevent it. But we finally did do it. We were able to arrange financing. And for me, I ended up selling or mortgaging or cashing in everything I had. I mean, everything I had. This was one roll of the dice on this company. Right down to the day before we were to close, we were going to close on January 2nd. We were going to close based off of a snapshot of the receivables and payables at midnight on June the 30th. So there was a little fluctuation in what the price might really be that I would have to come up with. So Joe called me that July 1st morning, which I think was a Monday, and he said, well, Rick, you got to come up with $25,000 more because of a little variation between the receivables and the payables. 25 grand, I didn't have it. Every 25,000 I had, I'd already thrown at it. But I did have a new Jeep Grand Cherokee that was paid for. So I got in that Jeep, drove down to Centura Bank in Enfield and talked with my friend Bob, who ran that branch, and said, I told Bob I need $25,000. Here's the title of this Jeep. And I brought that check with me up to Winston-Salem when we did the closing on July 2nd. So that was how tight it was. I never thought about going broke when I bought the company. And it just goes to show that you don't know what you don't know. I didn't realize how many ways you could get killed in a business and absolutely nothing that you had to do with it. I just had such confidence. I was so sure that no matter what, I knew how to keep the company upright. If nothing else, might not make a killing, but by gosh, I could keep it on its feet. Well, the first 2 weeks, the second Sunday night after owning this company, we had a truck have an accident in Richmond. Rear ended a car on 95, and I guess traffic was stopped and he didn't stop quick enough. Punched it into another one in front of it, totaled both those cars. Thank God nobody was hurt. I called the insurance company Monday morning. They called me back in about half an hour and said, sorry, that truck's not insured. I said, do what? And I said, no, that truck's not insured. Your policy is truck specific, which I had never heard of a truck specific insurance policy for a trucking company, but that it was. And somehow or another, in all the money I paid the lawyers in Winston-Salem, we missed the detail about that truck. But we worked through that. We got that resolved. And also inside of that same first 30 days, we had a flood. One of the neighbors dammed up the ditch that ran behind our warehouse so he could run some equipment across it. Meanwhile, we had a torrential rain. I mean, it rained as hard as I've ever seen it. And when it got to where he had dumped 2 or 3 dump trucks, loads of dirt in that ditch, they turned that place into a river. We had water running into our warehouse. It's like 4:45 in the afternoon. One of the employees came running in and said, water running in the warehouse. And I went outside and Moses, we had 4,000 pieces of furniture on the floor and water running in headed toward the office. So we got some of the people in the office, picked the computers up off the floor, put them on desk or whatever. And we went outside and we got as many people as I could muster. Some of the guys at 5 o'clock said, well, it's 5 o'clock, and left. And I remember. But at any rate, we got that furniture up, we got it loaded on trailers, got it out of that warehouse, and we just took yellow pads just like this, wrote down the what we call the ICN number, the identification number off each piece of freight, and this is on trailer 1, 2, 3, and that was on 4, 5, 6, or whatever, till we could get it untangled. But the bottom line is we worked through that, and we actually had minimal damage out of it. So we survived those first two fiascos. But I learned a hard lesson quick about how quick you can lose a company. You can go broke. And for me, I didn't have any reserves to fall back on. It was going to be like I'd have to start over, you know, assistant manager, second shift at 7-Eleven. But overall, it was a good thing. Probably the best thing I've ever done in my life. I've enjoyed it more, enjoyed that company and the company we have today more than anything I ever did. So I just want to tell you a little bit about Sun Delivery and what we built there. How we started Sun Logistics, which we have a name change. It's now Sun Warehousing and Distribution. When I went to register that trademark last year before last, found out there's another Sun Logistics in New York, a little small company with a 10,000 square foot warehouse, but they own the name. So, and their lawyers got all excited about when they saw that we were using that name, so we had to change it. But at any rate, when I first got up here, I think always been known as, I'm just kind of blunt to say, but I've been like known as anal retentive. I like things neat, clean. I like specific order in everything. And to me, you know, until just recently, I've always worn like a shirt and tie, a jacket to work. It's just who I am. And that's what I feel natural. People used to ask me, does tie bother you? No, that feels like I've got my clothes on. I couldn't, to me, working in Bermuda shorts or whatever, I just can't get my head into that. So when I first got to Sun Delivery and I came into the office, first, our trucks, it was a small fleet. And I'll tell you, it was a good company. That little company was making money, so it was a good company. And the guy that owned that company, it was started in 95 and I bought it in 02. So he had run it those 7 years or so. And he was a bright guy. And I think he just burned out was why that company wound up being for sale. But he had sort of a different mindset from me, and not saying his was wrong and mine was right, but he could function very well in a more relaxed and casual atmosphere than I could. He could wear shorts and flip-flops or sandals to work and be perfectly comfortable. And again, he ran a great company. It just wasn't me. So when I walked in with a shirt and tie, whatever, I mean, that I'm sure opened some eyes. But when I got into the office, the ladies in the office to begin with had like, some of them wore like the Daisy Duke shorts and some well-fitting t-shirts, and which wasn't bad, but wasn't business. I mean, to me, our guys in the warehouse would come in, working from outside to come into the office to get a bill of lading or to look up something, come in with no shirts on. Drivers look like pirates. I mean, with bandanas tied around their head, earrings, tattoos, whatever. I mean, it was rough looking. You can imagine it locked my heart to see that. But you can't change Rome in a day, and I knew that we couldn't do that. And the other thing about it, don't get me wrong, these were actually good people. They were really, really good people. It just looked different from what I had in my mind. So the first thing that I wanted to do, again, going back to, I wanted to have a customer-driven company. I wanted to be a company that wowed customers. I wanted to have a company that people knocked on our door to get in, rather than us going out begging for freight. But I had to go out and beg to start with. So we didn't fire anybody because of how they looked. But as people attritioned out along the way, we tried to start hiring more with what I felt like was fitting with what we were trying to build. What I was looking to do was to build a brand and to build a culture. The brand you build from the outside or on the outside, because that's what people see. The culture you build on the inside, that's what your people are that broadcast out to the world. So a couple of things in doing sales to start with. It was one day not long after I had the company, I was up on US 321 between Hickory and Lenore. And I was just going door to door. I was knocking on every furniture store door there was, because back in that day, what we did for home delivery, or white glove delivery, which I'd never heard of until I got up here. But what we did was, like, somebody would fly into High Point from Kansas or into Hickory, buy furniture, and now how do I get my bedroom suite home to Kansas? And that's what our company did. We delivered it to anywhere in the country. Well, soon after I bought it, we did. So I knocked on this one, I went in this one store in Hickory, and I went up to the counter, just make my pitch to whoever's standing there. I told the guy my name, and said, I'm with Sun Delivery, and immediately some guy whirled around the door and walked out straight in front of me and said, let me tell you about your company. And took my head off. The other sales story I'll tell you, this was after Amy joined our company in 2004, and I'll tell you, this best thing that ever happened to me. I'll say it in front of her or to her back, but it was her joining our company made all the difference in the world as well, because I think I'm pretty good at sales, but she is too. Yeah, but at any rate, we were calling on Stanley Furniture, had been calling on them, and Stanley Furniture up in Stanleytown, Virginia, had a guy who controlled traffic named Wills Clark. Wills was a really good guy, and he's kind of an institution in the trade. And I got to the point I liked him a lot before it was all said and done. But it took 3 years to get him to come to finally personally walk up front and tell me to go to hell, rather than send that word to the receptionist. But finally one day, Amy and I broke through that door, and we convinced him to give us a few shipments. And when he did, we wowed him. And when they opened their Young America line, whatever year it was, 2011 or 12 or 2010, whatever it was, we were their national in-home carrier. So going back to some, and I've got to breeze through this quickly, but going back to when I first got here, our fleet, we had 5 or 6 straight trucks, 2 or 3 tractors, and a handful of trailers. And the equipment, in my opinion, to me, from what I wanted it to be, was ragtag. But it was what we had, and that's all we could deal with. But one of the first things that we did in looking at building a brand was, as soon as I could, I started getting rid of those trucks, and we started putting new trucks in. In 2004, we opened up and started serving every zip code in the country. If it had a zip island or whatever it is, if it had a zip code and it was in the 48 continental United States, we went there. We went there with our trucks. It was our employees, our drivers. It was nothing farmed out to agents or anything like that. We did it. In 05, we sat down with Ryder. There was one leasing company in town that wouldn't lease trucks to me, wouldn't talk to me unless I put a lot of money up front. But I talked to Ryder and Penske both, and they both agreed to lease to us. So in 05, we got rid of all of those old straight trucks, and we brought in new straight trucks, and then we started our brand. When we had those new trucks, we put, if you can see it on the trailer over here, that's a 22-foot logo. We put that on every truck that we had. And we put reflective logos on the front and the back. I wanted to make our name known. In 06, we bought all new tractors, and you can see sort of from that line, that may have been about the time we brought in those new tractors, but we started bringing in new equipment, new trailers. And we logoed, again, this was about creating a brand. It was unusual to do, but I had the wheels on the trailers, not the tires, but the wheels, the rims, all painted orange to go with the orange logo. Had the undercarriages painted orange. And today, every now and then, through Thomasville or High Point, I'll see one of our old trailers. Now, our name is gone, or sometimes you can see the shadow, but you can still see the orange wheels and orange landing gear. And no, that's a piece of our old equipment. But sorry about that. You know, that happened to me 2 meetings ago, just about time for the drawing of whatever sitting in the chair. Sorry about that. The telemarketer. but I want to tell them something. I've told one or two of them. But in 06, something important happened to us too that we didn't know at the time. A lady by the name of Donna Branch, who was traffic manager with Pulaski Furniture in Pulaski, Virginia. Pulaski was selling curios to Neiman Marcus. And Neiman Marcus was using a carrier, and I'll say their name because they're not in business now, but it's a company called Home Direct. Home Direct was the largest in-home provider in the country. They were nationwide, and that was Neiman Marcus's flagship carrier for their home deliveries. But Neiman Marcus was having some issues with the deliveries, and curios, an all glass curio is not an easy thing to put in the truck, haul 1,000 miles and get it in somebody's house upstairs and not damage it. So we didn't realize it, but I think that Donna, speaking with Neiman Marcus, Pulaski had used us on some of their traffic, and I think we performed well for them. So unbeknownst to us, Neiman Marcus shipped 100 curios on us. And they went all over the country, Seattle, LA, San Diego, Chicago, Miami, I mean, you name it, in Manhattan, they went all over. We had one damage out of the 100, and it was a piece of broken glass, which we quickly fixed and got that curio back in there. And so that started the dialogue with Neiman Marcus and our company. And just to, long story short, we wound up getting that business. We wound up becoming their national carrier for in-home furniture. And Sun Delivery has that business still to this day. But I've told them many a time too, they were better than any college education I ever had. That with the things I learned from that company that fit exactly with what I wanted our company to be, really made an excellent marriage for the two of us. And they were great people, a great company. So in 07, well, first I stole a tagline from Neiman Marcus. They had a corporate motto that I liked when I walked in their door the first time, and I said, I'm gonna steal it, and never asked them about it. And they started seeing it on our paperwork, never questioned it. But again, I wanted to be like them. I mean, everybody knows that name and know what it's synonymous for. I wanted to be like that, and that was not meeting, but exceeding our customers' expectations. And so we picked that up as our tagline early on. And I used to explain to our managers, I use this as an example, what does that phrase really mean? What does exceeding our customers' expectations mean? I know Amy's heard this 1,000 times. I've said it in our management meetings, I say it to our employees. But if you walk into a 7-Eleven and you give the guy your $1, and he gives you a Coke, your expectation was met. You look to get a Coke, you look to spend $1, both of those things happen. But if you walk into that store and you put your $1 down and you get your Coke, but then he says, here, have a pack of crackers to go with that. You remember the pack of crackers the rest of your life. I mean, and that was what I wanted us to do. What are things that we can do that nobody else does? What are the things that are unheard of? What are the things that nobody in this business does that we can do that wow our customers? And that's how we started to build our culture in addition to building our brand. And I know most of you probably know this, but to build a culture, at least in my opinion, for a company to build a culture is built from the inside. Brand is built from the outside or for the outside. That's what you want people to see. Culture comes from the inside. I think in the average company, if you ask employees, most employees can tell you, most employee in any company can tell you what that company does. Everybody knows what. Most of the employees in that company know how, the how part. This is what we do. This is how we do it. You know, most of them can tell you that. But if you ask them, why do we do what we do? I think most employees will say, well, we do that to make money. And granted, making money is an important part of it. If you want to stay around, you can't take your eye off that ball. But that's not the why, at least not for me, not in our company. For me, the why is about the passion. The profit part is the how and the what. How you do what determines whether you make money or not. But the why starts with a passion. And with our company, it started with me and that idea sitting on my sofa that morning in '02 about, I want to be customer driven. I want to have the best company in the country that does what we do. I want to set the gold standard. I want to be that. Once I had that in my heart, I had to get our executive team to buy into that. And we had, and by the time we were doing all this, we had a really first-rate executive team in our company. But I had to get them to buy into that. Once they bought into it, they had to take it to our management level people and get them to buy in. Once they bought in, they have to take it to the frontline supervisors, and the frontline supervisors take it to the rank and file employees. It's like a seed that grows from the inside out. But that's how we went about building our culture. And I can't tell you, I don't have enough time to tell you all of the things that we did all along the way to build a culture in our company. But just a few of the things that we did. We formed an IT department early on, and that company grew to have 5 people in it. So we started building our own software. We built our own computers. We made things like we needed to have them for our sales team to better serve our customers. But they also helped us with things like creating training. We created a thing called Sun University, which was like an online training for our employees. Like take the drivers as an example. Starts off, it takes them through the whole training process, and there's a test at the end of it. The same with customer service people, with dispatch people, with all of our clerical people, all through. We did that. We huddled, we did morning meetings, we huddled every morning. I used to ask our employees, how many times did you ever go to a ball game, go to a basketball game, and see the coach arrive 15 minutes after the game starts? Be on time. Be on time. The other part of it is, how many games are out there that the coach doesn't huddle his team before you play? Pull your team together, get a game plan early on in the day. And we did that starting with our executive staff and our managers every morning. And that's how we went about building a culture. One of the couple things I left out, in '07, as we opened up nationwide in '07, we opened up in Los Angeles. We put our first facility on the West Coast, and I thought we had arrived when we did that. Little did I know what a bite working in California would be. But at any rate, it was a happy occasion going into California, a happier occasion coming out when we did. But the other thing, we opened in Dallas, opened a facility in Dallas in '09. And the idea was, out of Thomasville, we would serve the eastern part of the country. Dallas would serve central United States, and California served the 11 western states. And we'll just cut to the chase. In 2016, we pulled that facility out of LA and moved it to Las Vegas. Las Vegas is a right-to-work state that made a lot of difference for us, and it's a business-friendly state. California was worse than any foreign country I ever dealt with. I mean, honest to goodness. And not to say there's not a great state and a lot of good people that live there. There are, but there are some nutcases in my opinion. And that's purely my opinion. Again, it's a great state, a beautiful state, but it was one I was happy to leave when we left. We continued to serve California, of course, but we served it out of Las Vegas. I'll tell you a funny story real quick though, because now we're running trucks from Las Vegas to Los Angeles every day. We're running them on 2-day trips to do all of our local pickups as well as running our deliveries. So I was sitting home one night, got the news on, and this was maybe 7 o'clock at night. I don't know if any of you have ever driven that strip from Los Angeles, like from Barstow, where there are 15 turns, Barstow headed toward Las Vegas. But there's an area in the desert out there of about 15 or 20 miles. It looks like you're on the moon. And the wind always blows across there. So my wife and I are watching the news, and all of a sudden a little bulletin comes on, or a little blip that with an 80-mile-an-hour wind or whatever it was across that strip out there, it had turned 6 tractor trailers over. And I said to my wife, man, that's tough. About 10 minutes later, the phone rings. One was ours. And thank goodness nobody was hurt. Total tractor. We managed to salvage the trailer, and it didn't damage. Thank goodness it was just a local pickup unit. So We didn't have too much furniture in there to be damaged, but I thought that was an interesting point. Another reason California. But just moving along real quickly, I'll just tell you some of the things that we did. First thing we did, once we started really trying to build this culture too, was we put in a mission statement. When I bought the company, we had a mission statement. It was out in the lobby. It was about 2 paragraphs. I read it one time, and it said a lot of good things like mission statements do. But it occurred to me, we needed a mission statement that people could remember. It needed to be one sentence. So we came up with the mission statement, and I'll read it to you, although I challenge people all the time to say it, but it was to enhance the lives of those whom we serve by providing a world-class home delivery experience. We tried to live up to that. We got our employees to memorize it. We used to have a lot of fun with that. We go around to just ask somebody, what's our mission statement? What's our mission statement? Or at meetings, we would sometimes you give them a $20 bill, give them a gift certificate, give them a pat on the back, whatever, but just to try to drill that in. I used to especially do this with our drivers in our driver meetings. And some would stumble through and say it, some would couldn't say it all, but I would ask them, if you don't remember the entire thing, what are the 2 most important words in that mission statement? World class. Everybody got that. They all remembered that, and that's what I wanted them to remember. On the back doors of our trucks, where you open the back door, you always open the left door first on the swing door trailers. We put a little sticker that said world class starts here. Just like you do on the doors, safety starts here at the door handles. But some of the other things that we did that we put in place, we started running our customer service department 7 days a week. And that started with me phoning somebody sometime on the weekend trying to get some information about whatever. Couldn't get through to a soul. And it dawned on me, the same thing is happening to our customers. So we plugged in customer service 7 days a week, from 7 o'clock in the morning until midnight. The reason it was midnight was that's 9 o'clock on the West Coast. And we made deliveries until 9 o'clock at night. We delivered 7 days a week. If there was a problem, I wanted somebody to be able to live answer that phone and start the hand-holding process with that customer right then and hold their hand entirely through that whole process until it was over. So that's one of the things that we, initiated. With our drivers, we did gloves at delivery, gloves, booties, floor protection, wall corner protection. We put in wiping cloths, so once you deliver the furniture, wipe it off, dust it, glass cleaner, if you delivered glass, mirrors, clean it before you leave. And then I got an idea from somebody that did some work in our house one time about vacuums. So, because sometimes when we were delivering, even though it was pad wrap, sometimes some of the pieces had little styrofoam bits on them. So I bought vacuum cleaners and put in all of the trucks and had the drivers, once you finish the delivery, no matter what, take that vacuum in and run it. Even if it's only 30 seconds, just run that vacuum cleaner. And if there's anything, vacuum it up, but if not, run it anyway. Because to me, that was a psychological message to that housewife. And actually our customer on the road out there was a housewife. And that's a person that can be very happy or very unhappy. I mean, it's a scratch on my nightstand. And it's 1,000 miles away. And you just ruined my life. What are you going to do about it? Or whatever that nightstand was that even Marcus had one year, whatever that, some hot item that you never forget. I think it was a guy, I believe, wasn't it, that we ruined his Christmas because his nightstand wasn't going to be in his apartment for his Christmas party. Honestly. Hey. And Thanksgiving tables. Now that was just one I took seriously though. If we damaged the table or whatever, and it was at Thanksgiving, I mean, I can't tell you how many times that we picked up the phone and called court or somebody, rental place, and said, we will rent you a table for your Thanksgiving meal. Don't worry, we'll take care of it until we get your table back. But it was just doing things like that. We put GPS trucking in all of our trucks. We created another thing. We started this about 2017, a thing called WIGS, Wildly Important Goals. And I've forgotten where I came across that, but it seemed like a good idea to me. So I started reading about it and we got involved in it. And what I read was that people can do up to 3 things and do them successfully. If you start trying to accomplish more than that, your degree of success goes downhill. So we picked 3 things, and we got our management involved, and we put it all through our company, and it knocked my head off at the difference it made in the areas. We picked different ones each year, but we had TV monitors like all through our buildings, in the break rooms, out by the bulletin boards and the warehouses. But these screens had these wigs on them. We also had things that were like little gauges that showed how we were doing each month, how we're doing this quarter. We had some that involved trucks that went down the road, how far the little truck is marching along where it needs to go. But these things made quite a difference in our company. In 2016, we opened a sister company called Sun Logistics, which was a warehousing business. And we were successful in gaining Neiman Marcus national returns business as well as warehousing for them. Amy got involved in that as well and put her sales skills together and started pulling other customers in. In 2018, I believe it is, when Home Heritage Group closed up in Thomasville, I contacted the owner of the TFI warehouse here in town, the Central Warehouse, and ended up buying that building from him. We gave up our lease on the building we had. We had a building in Salisbury for Sun Logistics. We relocated that business to Thomasville, which is where I wanted it to be all along. We got that 750,000 foot monstrosity, but we've about got it full. And I remember when we first went in, it was dirty, it needed a lot of work. I hired a guy and asked him to paint. I said, "Can you paint the rest of your life?" And it was the same with cleaning. But we have a long ways to go with that building still, but we have done a lot to make that building a lot better place to be. We got a kind of a tough surprise. 3 roofs had to be replaced on it at $250,000 a pop, and we just got through with the last one. But I think we have a first-rate building in town, and we're here to stay. I mean, our mission is to be a part of Thomasville going forward. And just sort of in closing up the part, Amy's going to talk with you about our Sun Warehousing and Distribution, and she was just named president of that company as of January 1 of this year. One of the proudest moments of my life. I mean, there's nothing like handing your business off to your kid too. And I'll tell you, honest to goodness, she runs it so well. It probably runs better when I'm not there than when I am there, not interfere. It's hard for me to try to keep my hands out of it as much as I do now. But at any rate, she's done such a good job for us. But just lastly, real quick, I sold Sun Delivery in 2019. And I don't know where I got this, but just in the spring of 2019, I just got a gut feeling it's time to sell it. I always prayed to be smart enough when to get into something, but even more so to be smart enough when it's time to recognize when it's time to get out. So I contacted a friend out in California who had a company similar to ours, but he did business to business deliveries. We did business to home. And our 2 companies were natural bolt together. He had contacted me several times over the 3 or 4 years, 3 or 4 years before we actually put this together, and just said, "Rick, if you ever sell your company, please call me first." So I called him, and just a long story short, I sold the company to him in October 2019. It was a bittersweet day. I mean, it was great from the standpoint of having a successful sale and the ongoing business and jobs protected with the employees. It was hard for me because that was my baby, you know, that of what we built. And I would like to say that it was me that built it. And I'd like to say it was me that had all the great ideas, because we had a ton of great ideas that came forward and things we put into practice. But as I used to tell our employees and our customers alike, very little of it was me. I wish I could say that it was, but honest to God, very little of it was me. I had good people. I was a guy that was lucky enough to be at the top of the heap of a group of fantastic people that pulled all this stuff off and that made all of these things happen. And I used to tell our employees at our meetings sometimes, if you want to see who's responsible for making us the company that we are today, look in the mirror and you'll see exactly who made us what we are today. When we sold the company in 2019, I don't say it because it's my company, But I will tell you that I think we achieved what we were after. We were known in the trade, and one of the best compliments you can ever get is for your competitors to recognize you and to tell you you're the best of the best at what you do. We weren't the biggest. I never aimed to be the biggest, but I aimed to be the best. And that's what we set out to do. And I think by the time we sold that company, nobody had a reputation that would come close to touching what we did. I'll tell you one other quick funny little story, and then I'll turn it over to Amy. But sometime back, I was in Four Hands. It was one of our customers in Austin, Texas, and Four Hands has a party at Furniture Market. It's almost like Club Four Hands at night, almost like a disco. A little bit loud for me, but I was in there just for a little while. I sat down on a sofa, and there was another sofa on this side. There was two ladies sitting there, so we just started to chat for a second, like you always do at market, and we throw a sales pitch, of course. And so I asked them what they did. They said they were interior designers from Ohio. And I said, well, I do and they wanted to know that was I a furniture buyer or whatever. I said, no, I've got a home delivery company. I'd be interested in talking with you about your business. And one of the ladies said, you can't touch the company that we use, and they need to talk about it. And I said, well, who do you use? And I thought, I don't know who that is. And she said, it's Sun Delivery. Holy Moses. That's a one in a lifetime. I don't know how we got that business. And there are lots of other little stories like that along the way of things that happen similar to that. But it's been the most fun I've ever had in my life. And I'm still working today. I can't imagine not working at some point, but I don't work as hard as I did at one time. Now, mostly it's some civic responsibilities that have me at wit's end, being busy. But at any rate, I'm going to ask my daughter, Amy Boozer, to come up. Amy is our president at Sun Warehousing and Distribution, now to talk with you about what we do and sort of about where we're going with it. Amy.
So I can only talk for about an hour. That's good, right? I just wanted to take a minute to tell y'all thank you for having us today. He talked a little bit about the transition to Sun Warehousing and Distribution. That's been fun. He mentioned I joined the company in 2002 or 2004. Best decision I ever made as well. It was the family plan where I got half the pay and twice the hours. But long term, it turned out to be a really good thing. With the warehouse, Peyton had a chance to tour it with us about a year ago, I guess it was. So I'm anxious for her to come back because at the time we had a lot of empty space. We don't have much empty space now. If you guys are ever interested in seeing the facility, it's very interesting. It has a lot of the old Thomasville technology in it with a cart that runs all the way through the building, 1.5 miles, start to finish. 3 floors, 750,000 square feet. So it's a large facility. We're about 80% at capacity right now. So we have a little room left, but not a lot. But if you ever know anybody that needs warehousing space as well, we would love to talk to them. We're happy to be in Thomasville. Thomasville's been my home, my business home for a long time now, and great people. Very happy when we were able to find a building here that met our needs instead of locating to Salisbury. So I encourage you, if you ever are interested or would like to come to the facility, please feel free to. But I won't take up a whole lot more time. Thank you very much, and we appreciate it today.
I want to say that for years, when Jane was on the hospital board, she and Berta Riley, Jane would come home and she said, do you know Rick Phillips? And I said, I don't know Rick Phillips. She said, well, he's in the trucking business. And she kept asking me. She said, well, you need to meet this guy. He is really unusual. And that was a great thing. And I have met him, and he is unusual. He's a great guy. He's just as good as he sounds. I promise you that. He's been great on the hospital board. A lot of you don't know, but he was a Citizen of the Year last year from the Chamber of Commerce. He's head of the airport. Great guy. We appreciate you coming. Thank you so much.